pride was on the line yesterday in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And one team answered the bell, and one team is left searching for answers. Michigan 41, Penn State 17. I had some things I wanted to know yesterday, and boy, did I find them out. And I think we all found them out. I think Penn State, in some cases, was the last to find it out. This is kind of tough to see. Nearing halftime yesterday, this is a 16-14 game by way of Michigan, and it looks close. It was one of those classic box score versus observation type deals, because if you just look at the score really quickly, you think, ooh, nip and tuck, it's a dogfight up there in Ann Arbor. And then the video starts to circulate. Very similar to the one I shot last year when Ohio State was in town. There was a little back and forth, a little dust up, if you will, because they share a tunnel at Michigan Stadium, so both teams go up the same tunnel. And, you know, there's a little jawing, and eventually both teams retreat to their respective locker rooms. Here was the problem there, friends. Penn State was already getting cooked, and they didn't even know it. They were like a frog that was being boiled to death. But the frog was really giddy because the water had only gotten warm. The frog doesn't know it's getting cooked until it's too late. Penn State did not know they were getting cooked because the scoreboard lied to them. That scoreboard at the halftime lies quite frequently. Observers knew better. I had watched the first half of this game. I knew better. Director Collins said, this is over. Mid-first quarter, actually. Spoiled the ending for me. He said, this is over. 274-83. That was the yardage edge that Michigan went into the locker room with. But that's not as bad as it gets. Here's how bad it got. 18-1. Sounds like a T-ball final, doesn't it? Nope. That was the first down edge that Michigan had over Penn State. I want to restate this again for the passive listeners out there. Penn State went into the locker room with one total first down. And the second half played out about as you would expect it to. Here was the problem, one of many for Penn State, that Michigan just fully exploited. What Michigan did all afternoon was duplicable. They ran all over Penn State to the tune of over 400 yards, 418 total yards on the ground, padlock stat. Michigan 28-10, total first down edge, probably a padlock stat. Penn State did stuff that wasn't duplicable. Like Sean Clifford, God bless him, knee brace and all. He rips off a 62-yard run. It counts, but that's not duplicable. That's not something that you can go back in your bag later on and say, all right, we need that 4 or 5 more times. It happens once, and you're thankful it does, but you better find another way to score from here on out. They had a ball tipped up in the air and intercepted, pick 6. That's great. It counts. And there's something to be said for being in the right place at the right time and getting your hand in front of the ball. That's not something you can count on happening 4 or 5 more times in a game. That may not happen again this season. But it happened in the first half. Both of those things happened, and they both led to scores eventually. So that's how you had 14 at the half. None of that stuff was going to happen again. And outside of that, they had nothing. Penn State had absolutely nothing. After that Sean Clifford 62-yard keeper, whatever it was, which is really, really pretty, by the way, Penn State's longest run was 9 yards. Remember last week? We had 2 things. I had 2 things I wanted to find out. Number one, J.J. McCarthy came into this thing with the highest completion percentage in college football, and I wanted to know, hey, this Penn State crew is not even allowing 50% completion percentage every Saturday. Well, J.J. answered the bell. 70.8% yesterday. Really good day. And he didn't have to do a whole lot because of the aforementioned half a mile on the ground that Michigan was en route to picking up. The other thing we wanted to find out was how this much improved Penn State ground game would fare against the Michigan front. Well, they didn't. They didn't at all. Outside of that long run I talked about, 9 yards was the longest game. Michigan, as we've said all year about them, and some people have been slow to react, I think you're realizing now they're for real. They are a Big Ten championship contender. They are a college football playoff contender. I like this team better than the team they had last year. Not by leaps and bounds. It's not one of those, it's not even close kind of deals, but they're a very good, I think they're a good team, and the efficiency that they have at quarterback and have the ability to have, it will translate. That running game will translate. I don't think anyone's shutting them down. If let me say if they were to end up getting back in a matchup against a team like Georgia, they're not running for 400 yards, but man, the push they get up front and the way that defenses have been built in general in college football nowadays to defend all sorts of other pinball offenses, it's just tailor-made for them leaning and leaning and leaning. They may only have 16 at the half, but it's a four-quarter effort. You know, it's a four-quarter brand of ball that they play in the most intentional of ways. I love what Michigan is right now, and I love where they're headed. Now, as for Penn State, it is gut check time for them. They're going to go home, and it's the whiteout week. They're going to play Minnesota, and they opened as about a 4 or a 5-point favorite against Minnesota. Don't know if Minnesota's going to have Tanner Morgan. They got Mo Ibrahim, though, and that guy can run it just like the two guys with Michigan ran it on you yesterday. It's gut check time because this is sort of a soul-searching moment. And I don't just mean for that locker room. I mean for the coaching staff, too. Mike Yurcich is in year 2 as the OC at Penn State. A lot of people are grumbling, rightfully so, because they moved on from Kurt Shiraka, and he's ironically gone back to the team they're going to play Saturday. Hello, motivation. And they really are not much to write home about offensively right now. And you kind of just get the feeling they are what they are at this point. At least that's how I feel when I watch them. And what they are is probably not good enough to win those major games. They went to Auburn, and they flexed on Auburn. And at the time, I said, look, I think that's very impressive. We'll wait several weeks, and then that game will be a little bit easier to interpret in the form of how much value to put in it. Well, it turns out they just beat up a really, really bad team down there. Still impressive, but it's not the statement that reverberates into the future like maybe you hoped it was at the time. It won't matter. It didn't matter yesterday. It won't matter this Saturday, even though they're a favorite, and it certainly won't matter 2 weeks from now. That's the one everyone's got their eye on. Ohio State comes in there 14 days from yesterday. And, buddy, that won't be close if Penn State does not rapidly improve multiple facets of this team. There's the schedule. And it's nice to get Indiana and Maryland and Rutgers and Michigan State to close it out. It won't matter if you can't take care of business. This little 3-game stretch here, as we've known all year, is going to define their season. At Michigan, resounding dud. They got Minnesota this week, then they got Ohio State. James Franklin now is 7-18 against the big 3 in his division. Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State. Not good enough. I think if he were sitting here, he'd tell you the same thing. Not good enough. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Make sure you like the video and please subscribe to the channel. Not just for me. That's how we keep this entire thing free.